Hello everyone and welcome to the next lecture on eclectic reading comprehension. I'm sure you must be enjoying all the videos. We started off with the very basics of reading comprehension. We've seen the approach towards passages. We have seen approach towards attempting the questions. And then we talked about that how the basic things like business and economics. We have seen some of the basics terminologies of economics. And today, as I said in this video, I'll be solving some of the passages related to business and economics. And there are a lot more interesting sessions coming up. We'll talk about sociology, we'll talk about psychology in detail, and we'll also be solving passages related to that. Now let's start with passage 1 related to business and economics. And for this particular passage, I'll be giving you close to around, let's take 7 minutes. So just pause the video and read this passage for 7 minutes, and after 7 minutes, we'll start solving it. And your time starts now. Okay, I'm sure you guys must have read now. आपने read by now कि 7 मिनट में आपने पढ़ लिया होगा. And let me quickly try to explain what exactly this passage is trying to say. Okay, and let's see the main points here. Let's understand the main points, what it is given. Okay, let's start. If translated into English, most of the ways economics talk among themselves would sound plausible enough to poets, journalists, business people, and other thoughtful though non-economical folk. वो क्या बोलना चाह रहा है? जिस तरीके से अगर हम इकोनॉमिक्स जिस लैंग्वेज में बात करते हैं, इकोनॉमिस्ट जिस लैंग्वेज में बात करते हैं, उसको अगर अपन इंग्लिश में ट्रांसलेट कर दें, राइट, तो सबको समझ में आएगा. बी पोएट्स, जर्नलिस्ट, बिजनेस पीपल एंड अदर थॉटफुल दो नॉन इकोनॉमिकल, जो इकोनॉमिक्स से रिलेशन नहीं रखते हैं. लाइक सीरियस टॉक एनीवेयर अमंग बोर्ड डिजाइनर एंड बेसबॉल फैंस say the talk is hard to follow when one has not made a habit of listening for a while. अब वो क्या बोल रहे हैं? अगर हमारे को सुनने की आदत नहीं है और अगर हमारे को इकोनॉमिक्स जैसी चीजें सुनने की आदत नहीं है, उनके लिए शायद ये समझना मुश्किल हो जाएगा. इट्स हार्ड टू फॉलो. द कल्चर ऑफ द कन्वर्सेशन मेक्स द वर्ड आर्केन. वो क्या बोल रहा है? ये जो कन्वर्सेशन है, द कल्चर है जो कन्वर्सेशन करने का, ये वर्ड्स को क्या बना देता है? आर्केन. आर्केन का मतलब होता है विच इज अंडरस्टैंड बाय वेरी फ्यू, विच इज अंडरस्टैंड बाय वेरी फ्यू, राइट. तो जिसको अगर हैबिट नहीं है और ये जो कल्चर ऑफ कन्वर्सेशन है, ये वर्ड्स को आर्केन बना देता है. मतलब जिस तरीके से हम कन्वर्स करते हैं, उस वजह से ये बहुत कम लोगों को समझ में आता है. But the people in the unfamiliar conversation are not Martians. अगर हम लोग ये unfamiliar conversation की बात करेंगे, ये जो लोग इस unfamiliar conversation के अंदर जो involved हैं, they are not Martians. ठीक है? Underneath it all, conversational habits are similar. ये कोई ज्यादा extraordinary नहीं है. सबके बेस में conversations जो है वो similar ही है. ठीक है? इकोनॉमिक्स यूज मैथमेटिकल टू मॉडल्स एंड स्टैटिस्टिकल टेस्ट एंड मेक आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, all of which look alien to the literary eye, but look at closely, they are not so alien. They may be seen as figures of speech, metaphors, analogy, and appeals to authority. Let's see what this first paragraph is talking about. वो क्या बोलना चाह रहा है कि इकोनॉमिक्स जिस तरीके से बात करते हैं, वो अगर इंग्लिश के अंदर ट्रांसलेट किया जाए, मतलब इट इज अ sarcastic वे ऑफ सेइंग कि वो जिस वे में बात करते हैं, अगर उसको इंग्लिश में ट्रांसलेट किया जाए, अगर उन जार्गन्स को हटाया जाए, तो वो सबको आराम से समझ में आ जाएगा. हर उन लोगों को भी जो भी नॉन इकोनॉमिकल बैकग्राउंड से बिलोंग करते हैं. और वो क्या बोल रहा है? जो कल्चर है ना बात करने का, ये इसको आर्केन बना देता है, सो दैट कि कम लोगों को समझ में आए. और जो ये लोग बातें कर रहे हैं, ये कोई बड़ी चीज नहीं है. ये सिर्फ मैथमेटिकल टूल और स्टैटिस्टिकल यूज करते हैं, बट एट द बेस वी ऑल कन्वर्स in the same manner. Let's go to the second para. Figure of speech. They are talking about figure of speech. We are talking about metaphors. When you compare someone with something is metaphor, right? Brave like a lion, a metaphor, right? So this is what we are talking about. Or shining like a sun is a metaphor. Analogy, right? ये सारे क्या है? Figure of speech है जो कि आपकी कम्युनिकेशन को, आपकी राइटिंग को इम्पैक्टफुल बनाते हैं. फिगर ऑफ स्पीच आर नॉट मियर फ्रिल्स. ये सिर्फ फ्रिल्स ही नहीं है कि बीच के अंदर सिर्फ किसी को काम देने के लिए आया है. ये क्या है? ये हमारे लिए सोचती हैं. These figure of speech, simile, metaphor, analogies, oxymoron, they think about us. Someone who think of a market as an invisible hand. और ये मार्केट क्या बोल रहा है? Someone, जो बंदा who think of a market as invisible hand, ये वो hand है जो कि दिखता नहीं है. And organization of work as a production function. और organization का work क्या है? Production function. And his coefficients as being significant as an economist does. और उसके जो coefficients हैं उसको हम लोग बोल रहे हैं बहुत ही significant चीज, जैसे कि इकोनॉमिस्ट देखते हैं, is giving the language a lot of responsibility. It seems a good idea to look hard at this language. अब वो क्या बोलना चाह रहा है कि फिगर ऑफ स्पीच को वो कंपेयर कर रहा है इकोनॉमिस्ट की लैंग्वेज से, कि जिस तरीके से फिगर ऑफ स्पीच सिर्फ फ्रिल्स ही नहीं है, उसी तरीके से वो एनालॉजी क्रिएट कर रहा है इकोनॉमिक्स की लैंग्वेज में, कि वो जो है मार्केट को क्या समझता है, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को क्या समझता है, कोएफिशिएंसी को क्या समझता है. दैट्स व्हाट दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट. और लास्ट में वो क्या बोल रहा है? इट सीम्स अ गुड आइडिया टू लुक हार्ड एट हिज लैंग्वेज. किसकी लैंग्वेज? इकोनॉमिस्ट की लैंग्वेज. इट्स अ गुड आइडिया कि उसकी लैंग्वेज को हम लोग और डिटेल में देखें, बिकॉज इट इज एज गुड एज फिगर ऑफ स्पीच. इट इज एज गुड एज इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज. लेट्स गो टू द थर्ड, राइट? सो यहां पर वो बात कर रहा है, मैं थोड़ा सा मेन पॉइंट लेता हूं. इकोनॉमिस्ट की लैंग्वेज को वो बोल रहा है इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज, और सेकंड पॉइंट वो ये बोल रहा है जो कि यहां था, दैट all the conversations are similar. All conversations are similar in nature. Okay. If the economic conversation were found to depend a lot on its verbal forms, अगर हम लोग इकोनॉमिक कन्वर्सेशन को अगर हम सोचे कि ये बहुत ज्यादा वर्बल फॉर्म के अंदर डिपेंडेंट है, this would not mean that economics would not be a science. इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि इकोनॉमिक साइंस नहीं है, वो इंग्लिश है, ऐसा कोई मतलब नहीं है. जस्ट अ मैटर ऑफ ओपिनियन और सम सॉर्ट ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस गेम. जिस तरीके से ये वर्बल फॉर्म के ऊपर बहुत ज्यादा डिपेंडेंट है, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि ये साइंस है. इट जस्ट दैट हम लोग ये बात कर रहे हैं दैट इकोनॉमिक्स इज नथिंग बट अ कॉन्फिडेंस गेम. गुड पोएट्स दो नॉट साइंटिस्ट. अच्छे जो पोएट्स हैं वो साइंटिस्ट नहीं है, राइट? आर सीरियस थिंकर्स अबाउट सिंबल्स. दे आर वेरी सीरियस थिंकर अबाउट सिंबल्स. गुड हिस्टोरियंस अगेन नॉट साइंटिस्ट. तो पहले वो पोएट की बात कर रहा है, दे आर गुड विद सिंबल्स. गुड हिस्टोरियंस दो नॉट साइंटिस्ट आर गुड थिंकर्स अबाउट द डेटा. गुड साइंटिस्ट ऑल्सो यूज लैंग्वेज. दे ऑल्सो यूज लैंग्वेज. What is more, they use the cunning of language. वो तो लैंग्वेज की कनिंगनेस, उसकी शरारतीपन को भी यूज करते हैं in the form of figure of speech without particularly meaning to. Their language use is a social object and using language is a social act. It's a social object and using it is a social act. It requires cunning, attention to other minds present when one speak. जब एक बंदा बोल रहा है, सामने वाले की भी अटेंशन चाहिए. सो वेदर इट इज इकोनॉमिस्ट, वेदर दे आर पोएट्स, वेदर दे आर हिस्टोरियंस, एवरीवन यूज द लैंग्वेज. इट्स मोर ऑफ अ लैंग्वेज पैसेज रादर देन बिजनेस एंड इकोनॉमिक्स, राइट? सो दैट, हालांकि ये बिजनेस इकोनॉमिक्स कैटेगरी के अंदर आता है, बट इट्स ऑल अबाउट लैंग्वेज. तो वो बोल रहा है हर बंदा लैंग्वेज. सो ये बेसिकली ये जो है ये एक्सप्लेन कर रहा है, ये इस आर्ग्यूमेंट को एक्सटेंड कर रहा है, ये बेसिकली इस आर्ग्यूमेंट को एक्सटेंड कर रहा है. किस आर्ग्यूमेंट को? when the argument says that they all are similar. Here we go. When the argument says all the conversation are similar, इस आर्ग्यूमेंट को एक्सटेंड कर रहा है my third paragraph. My third paragraph is extending this argument. I hope it is clear. My third paragraph is extending this argument. The paying of attention to one's audience is called rhetoric. आपकी ऑडियंस, मेरे स्टूडेंट्स को जो सुनना पसंद है या जो वो सुनना चाहते हैं या वो जिस लिए ई कोचिंग पे आए हैं, उसको बोलेंगे हम rhetoric in a very layman terms. Okay, so the paying of attention to one audience is called rhetoric, a word that I later exercise hard, जो शायद मुझे समझने में, उसके बारे में जानने में बहुत टाइम लगा. One uses rhetoric, of course, to warn of a fire in a theater or to arouse the xenophobia of the electorate. So हम rhetoric किस लिए use करते हैं? Rhetoric again is a you know how you speak. It's a kind of a figure of speech. It's basically warning of a fire in a theater. A rhetoric. What do you want to say to my audience? They should pay attention to it. Or for that matter, to arouse the feeling of xenophobia. Xenophobia क्या होता है? मैंने बताया था, fear of strangers, right? Of the electorate. मतलब अगर मान लो बाहर का कोई आदमी हमारा बन जाएगा, let's say politician या फिर prime minister, उसके लिए अगर मुझे xenophobic tendencies दिखानी है, that is my rhetoric. Okay? This sort of yelling, चिल्लाना, is the vulgar meaning of the word, like the president heated rhetoric. इसको हम लोग एक vulgar meaning बोल सकते हैं. ये rhetoric का बहुत गलत usage है. In a press conference or the mere rhetoric to which our enemies stop. Since the Greek flame was lit, though the word has been also in a broader and more amiable sense to mean the study of all the ways of accomplishment things. अब वो क्या बोल रहा है? इसको बहुत ही ब्रॉडर सेंस के अंदर हमने यूज करने लग दिया ताकि हम लोग हर मीनिंग का मतलब यहां से जोड़ लें. With language, you are relating, you are kind of relating all the meaning to the language with using this word. For example, inciting a mob to lynch the accused, inciting a mob to lynch the accused, to be sure, but also persuading reader of a novel that its characters breathe, or bringing scholars to accept the better argument and reject the words. Again, a work of rhetoric, that the character in the novels are breathing, or for that matter, the scholars to accept the better argument or reject the words. This is what? This is nothing but rhetoric. So here in the third, we are talking about rhetoric. We are talking about rhetoric, what it means, right? The question is whether the scholar who usually fancies himself an announcer of result or a state of conclusion free of rhetoric speaks rhetorically. Now what they are talking about is, now the main question is the scholar himself who announces the result, or basically he is a stater of conclusion free of rhetoric. Matlab you are now free of rhetoric. Are you yourself speaking rhetorically? Are you actually considering your audience, or you are just giving the conclusion straight away? Does he is trying to persuade? Are you trying to persuade me, or it is actually a rhetoric based on the audience? It would seem so. Language, I just said, is not a solitary accomplishment everyone can use as his own. The scholar doesn't speak into the void or to himself. He speaks to a community of voices, which means it's a rhetoric. He desires to be heeded, praised, published, imitated, honored, ennobled. These are desires. The devices of the language are means. So again, they are talking about rhetoric as a language of means. So now this paragraph is extending the rhetoric, extending the argument for rhetoric. I repeat, my first paragraph मैं वापस रिपीट कर रहा हूं, my first paragraph was talking about conversation or similar, ठीक है. Then my second paragraph was talking about figure of speech, English language. This is what my second paragraph was talking about. Third was extended argument of first. Fourth is talking about rhetoric. And fifth is basically extending the rhetoric. So this is something you should know when the passage is really tough, I would say, to read and not in your comfort zone. Let's continue. Rhetoric is the proportioning of means to desires in speech. It is basically, rhetoric is proportioning of means to desires. It's basically a desires in speech. Rhetoric is an economics of language. Very important. Rhetoric is an economics of language. The study of how scarce means are allocated to the insatiable desires of the people to be heard. Now, what is this figure of speech? Right? हम लोग बोलते हैं ना, कम शब्दों में बहुत कुछ बोल जाते हैं. That's what figure of speech is making, is basically to make my conversation impactful. That's what the figure of speech is all about. Now, what they are saying is scarcity of the resources. You don't have much words. You are inarticulated using the words. You are using, halaki, it's again an oxymoron that you are inarticulate and you are using figure of speech. But still what I'm trying to say here is how scarce means are allocated to the unsatiable desires of people. There are desires of people to be heard, to be ennobled, to be, published, but how? That's what the rhetoric is getting into. It seems on the face of it a reasonable hypothesis that economics are like other people when being talked, who desire listeners when they go to the library or the laboratory, as when they go to the office in the polls. The purpose here is to see if this is true and to see if it is useful to study the rhetoric of economic scholarship. And now he's trying to slowly coming to the conclusion and relating to the economists here that they also speak the same language. Now, when we are talking about this, ये again इसको और ज़्यादा support कर रहा है. ये basically इसको support कर रहा है that they use the same language. The subject is scholarship. It is not economy or the adequacy of economic theory, as a description of the economy says, or even mainly the economist's role in the economy. The subject in the conversation economists have among themselves for purpose of persuading each other that the interest, elasticity of demand for investment is zero, that the money supply is controlled by Federal Reserve. So what they are talking about, it is all about हम जिस subject पे काम कर रहे हैं, जिस subject पे बात कर रहे हैं, to persuade one another, right? Now what they are saying is, unfortunately though, the conclusion are of more than academic interest. It is more than academic interest. The conversation of classicists of astronomers rarely affect the life of another. So अगर astronomer discussion कर रहे होंगे, it's rarely affecting the lives of another people. Those of economists do so on a large scale. और जब economists बात कर रहे होंगे, तो it will definitely impacting the life of others. A well-known joke describes a May Day parade through Red Square with the usual mass of soldiers, guided missiles, rocket launchers. At last come rank upon rank of people in grey business suits. A bystander asks, "Who are those?" Ah, comes the reply, "Those are economists. You have no idea what damage can they do. Their conversations do it." So the author started with the sarcasm and again ended with the sarcasm that their conversations, जो conversation वो करते हैं, they basically can damage a lot, right? That's a very famous joke here, right? So whole idea was about language, the language which economists basically use in their day-to-day words, right? How that language is similar to every one of us use, and then they are relating this language from, let's say, the figure of speech which we use in English language, then author is going ahead and talking this thing as rhetoric, which means for my audience. So whatever conversation we are talking about, it should be for the audience so that they should understand, and that's what economics has to understand. And then they are relating it with how, when they talk, how the damage it can do to that to a lot of people. So it's very important that it should be understandable, and the rhetoric word is basically the main idea what author is using again and again. Okay, let's now move to the question. A moderate kind, I would say a tough passage, right? But that's what a management students appearing for CAT or Z should go for, right? Okay, let's move further. Here we go to the questions directly. Let's see if how many inference-based questions we can solve without going to the passage. According to the passage, which of the following is best set of reasons for which one needs to look hard at the economics language? Why should we look hard at the economics language? Right? मुझे एक inference जो समझ में आ रहा है, because it can affect the life of many people. That's what was given at the last. Let's see the options now. The first option, economists accomplish a great deal through their language. Economics is an opinion-based subject, okay? Economics has a great impact. That's what I said. ये शायद होना चाहिए. Economics is damaging. Okay, the options are, here we go. These are the four, very sorry for that. These are the four options we are talking about. So मुझे एक option तो short लग रहा है that ये तो होना चाहिए because it's a fact based that they have a great impact on their lives. Written in the last, their conversation their conversation had a very great impact on the lives. So C definitely होना चाहिए. If C is the answer, I have two options, right? Let's see. If I talk about D will basically be eliminated for a simple reason. That's extreme. That's extreme option. It is damaging. It is damaging, I can understand. But extreme का मतलब यहाँ पर ये बोलना चाह रहा है economics is damaging. पहली बात यहाँ पर economist की बात कर रहे हैं. The first thing we are talking about economist. Even if we take in the economic sense, it's not always damaging. Two things I am saying. First of all, in the passage we are talking about economist, right? Look hard at the economist language, not because economics is always damaging. So that's why first of all we are talking about economist, and यहाँ पर बोल रहा है economics is damaging. Out of context, my D option eliminated. If my D option is eliminated, my second option will be eliminated for sure, and my fourth option is eliminated for sure. So मैं second option eliminate कर दूंगा, fourth eliminate कर दूंगा, because even talk about economics is damaging. Okay, now I'm left with first and three, and the confusion should be between A. A में देखते हैं, economics accomplish a great deal through their language. So यहाँ पर वो बोल रहा है, how come we are talking about looking hard at the economist language, right? Why we should look hard? Because it accomplished a great deal. In what sense? I don't know. In what sense? I don't know. And we are talking about through their conversation. Economists accomplish a great deal through their conversation. ठीक है? Okay. But is it directly related in this context? Let's see the next option, which is option number, where we go, B. Option number B बोल रहा है, economics is an opinion based subject. Now between these options, between both these options, students generally get concerned that, sir, language and conversation, yes, they are the same thing. Yes, they are the same thing, because that's the context we were talking about, that the economist, the language in which economists converse, the language in which economists converse is similar for everyone. So it's very important to look hard at the economics language because it is similar, it can destroy, it's a great deal, right? It can impact on other lives. And I won't say destroy, again it will be extreme, but it have an impact on other lives. And B क्या बोल रहा है? Economics is an opinion based subject again we are talking about economics. First of all, is a opinion based subject. If it is an opinion based subject, why are we talking about only looking hard? We can look easy also. If it is a opinion based subject, we can look hard or look easy also, right? Why to only look hard if it is an opinion based subject? Things can be easy too, things can be mild too, and that's why C, this option will also be eliminated. B option will also be eliminated. I will go with option number 3, which is A and C. I repeat, why I have eliminated B and D, because यहाँ पर वो बात कर रहा है opinion based subjects की. It can be hard or it can be easy as well. That's the logic which you need to apply here. And when we are talking about option D, we are talking about damaging. We are talking about damaging. And that's the reason C option is the right answer. Let's go to the next question. In the light of that, as I said, the inference based questions, please understand, पहली बार passage ढंग से पढ़िए, so that you don't have to, go back to the passage again and again. In the light of the definition of rhetoric for the people given in the passage, which of the following will have the least element of a rhetoric? The least element of a rhetoric according to the passage. Rhetoric is for the audience, the language which we are using for the audience to understand. And your options are: option 1, an election speech. Yes, it can be rhetoric. It can be rhetoric when we talked about that electorate thing. When we talk about that electorate thing, right? It's a rhetoric. You are persuading your voters for the same, for the audience. So election speech definitely should be a rhetoric. Let's go to option number 2. An advertisement jingle definitely should be rhetoric. You are convincing people to use hand wash. You are convincing people to wear mask. You are convincing people to use sanitizers. You are convincing people to don't go outside during the second wave or a third wave. An advertisement jingle should always be rhetoric. If it is not, then obviously making no sense at all. Option 3, dialogues in a play should be rhetoric for sure. You need them to understand what the idea you want to convey. If I am giving you this speech, you should understand what idea I want to convey. That's definitely a rhetoric. Commands given by army office. So when we are talking about the words command, not a rhetoric in the context of the passage, because these are not, we are not talking about audience here. We are not talking about audience here. They have to abide by it. They have to abide by it. समझ में आ रहा है या नहीं आ रहा है? समझ में आ रहा है या नहीं आ रहा है? Command है, fulfill करना है. That's a command. So rhetoric is basically used for your audience. That's why fourth option should be the least element of the word rhetoric. I hope it is clear. If not, do write in the comment section below. अगर आपको passage समझ में नहीं आया or you have a different opinion, do let me know or get in touch with me on the Telegram group. Okay, let's move to the third. As used in the passage, very important. As used in the passage, which of the following is the closest meaning of the statement? The culture of the conversation makes the word arcane. The culture of the conversation. Conversation का जो culture है, जिस तरीके से हम करते हैं, वो words को arcane बना देता है, so that the audience are not able to understand. So जो culture है, वो उसको बना देता है. Let's move to the questions now. Economists belong to a different culture. Economists belong to a different culture. Okay. Only mathematicians can understand economists. Economists tend to use terms unfamiliar to the layperson but depend on familiar linguistic forms. Economists use simile and adjective in their analysis. Closest to the statement. The culture of the conversation. हम जिस तरीके से बात करते हैं वो हमारे वर्ड्स को आर्केन बना देता है ताकि लोग समझ नहीं पाते हैं. ठीक है? ओके, लेट्स गो टू ऑप्शन नंबर 1. पहले सबसे इजी एलिमिनेशन, द इजी एलिमिनेशन ऑफ ऑल इज ऑप्शन नंबर 2. because the word here which is given is only. Only mathematicians can understand economics. इससे मेरे इसका कोई लेना देना नहीं है. उससे सिर्फ इतना बोला है, culture of the conversation make the words arcane. Mathematicians understand use करते हैं नहीं करते हैं, उससे इस एनालॉजी का कोई लेना देना नहीं है. ओनली वजह से ये वर्ड जो ये पूरा स्टेटमेंट जो है ये बन जा रहा है नैरो. सबसे पहले सेकंड ऑप्शन एलिमिनेट करूंगा. लेट्स मूव टू द अदर्स. राइट, अदर्स ऑप्शन क्या क्या बोले जा रहे हैं? इकोनॉमिक्स बिलोंग टू अ डिफरेंट कल्चर. टू स्पेसिफिक. दे आर फ्रॉम अ डिफरेंट कल्चर, इसलिए वर्ड्स आर्केन हो रहे हैं. नहीं, कल्चर ऑफ द कन्वर्सेशन. It's not about different culture, it's culture of conversation. If I am talking to you guys, अगर मैंने इकोनॉमिक्स की जो जार्गन्स आपको समझाए थे, वो जार्गन्स मैंने लेमन टर्म्स के अंदर समझाए थे. अगर मैं उन जार्गन्स को उसी तरीके से यूज करता, तुम ये तो नहीं बोलते प्रशांत बिलोंग्स फ्रॉम अ डिफरेंट कल्चर. Though he is using the jargons, and if he is using the jargons, can I say this? Can I say this? Economics, you tend to use, Prashant tend to use unfamiliar terms to the layman purpose, to the students, but depend on a familiar linguistic forms. It depends on the familiar. It is an unfamiliar term, but how am I using? How am I using? And that's why C option should be the right answer, because belonging to a different culture you can't say. And economics use simile. They use simile. I don't know they are using this figure of speech or not. I don't know they are using this figure of speech or not. So that's too specific. That's too specific. और इसको मैं कैटेगरी में लेके आऊंगा नैरो कैटेगरी में. This is my narrow category. This again is my narrow category. First one is my alien category, and that's why I'm marking option number C as the right answer. I hope it is clear. Let's move to the next. Let's move to the next question. As used in the passage, which of the following is the closest alternative to the word arcane? हमने अभी ऑलरेडी बात कर लिया है. क्लोजेस्ट वर्ड का मतलब होगा मिस्टीरियस. क्लोजेस्ट वर्ड का मतलब क्या होगा? मिस्टीरियस टू द वर्ड arcane. It looks as if what is going on, I'm not able to understand, and that's what the mysterious word is all about. Secret or covert for that matter, one and the same thing. But यहाँ पर इकोनॉमिक्स जो है कुछ भी चीज सीक्रेट रखने की बात नहीं कर रहे. It's just that a layman won't be able to understand. And when we're talking about the word perfidious, perfidious basically means deceitful or untruthful or false. Something which is untruthful or false, or let's say deceitful, जिसको चोरी करना, चकमा देना, that is the word perfidious. Economists basically are using the word because they are using the in a very different, I would say, conversation which is not clear to people like us, and that's why the word is mysterious.